Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have my heroes on, as you can see, and I'm going to talk to you about life is kind of like a numbers game. Let me explain. Before I start explaining, let me establish a baseline. These being that time is eternal, our life is not, we start at X and end in Y, and how old we are currently can determine how much experience you have. This is not always the case, however, because a 50-year-old person who lives in a castle and never leaves it will not compare to the experience a 17-year-old person has who is raising a family and working multiple jobs, for example. But generally speaking, how old you are can also be a gauge to how much experience you currently have. Now, in a normal playthrough of life, after a certain age, you go to school, and somewhere along your school journey, you are introduced to scores, or the concept of scoring. A score is a number that determines how well you do in a particular field or subject. Getting a low score, for example, like a 17 out of 100 in math, is a general indicator that a person does not have an understanding or mastery in this subject, in this case, a low mastery or understanding of math. On the other hand, getting an 89 out of 100 in history, for example, a high score, is an indicator that a person has a high understanding or mastery of this subject. There are radicals in scoring as well. There is something called a perfect score, in which a person obtains a 100 out of 100, a complete mastery or understanding of the subject or field, and its opposite, a 0 out of 100, indicating a complete lack of understanding or mastery of the subject. Both are very much real, but I think it's more common to see a perfect score than a score of 0 or null. Now, the playthrough progresses and you graduate school, and after school you generally have two choices. You go to a more advanced school called university to specialize in a specific field, or you start working and try to figure life out. And as the normal playthrough advances, the person might meet a significant other, fall in love, marry, or have a family, and continue on living until the person no longer is and dies. But as you're living, and no matter in what moment you find yourself in the playthrough, whether you're in school or not, employed or not, in love or not, happy or not, how many things you do in life and how well you do in them, or score in them, are going to be indicators of how well you do in life. Ask yourself these questions. How many sports do you play or have you played? How much do you score in a game of basketball, for example? How many people have you dated? How many girlfriends or boyfriends have you had? How many subjects or areas in life are you passionate about? How many video games have you played? Have you scored high in these games? Are you good in these games? How much money do you have? How much money do you want to have? How many jobs have you worked? Or how many jobs do you currently work? How many books have you read? How many stories have you seen? How many movies have you enjoyed? How much exercise do you do in a week? How many meals do you eat in a day? How many friends do you have? How many friends have you lost? How many times have you stopped something? How many times have you tried? How many times have you failed? How many times will you succeed? How many times have you thought about this before? And how many times have you dreamed? The more how much or how many's you have in life, regardless of where you are in the playthrough and how high you score in them, will most likely determine how well you will do in it, or better said, how well you will do in this game we call life. And to end this video, I will leave you with this question. Are you right now really living?